Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our speaking portion of the meeting. Today, Ms. Sarah Grau will be presenting a second speech and using all of the feedback that she had garnered from a previous speech that she had done and applying it here. She's looking forward to building her repertoire of humorous speeches. Please help me welcome Sarah Grau.
You're
Sarah?
muted.
That's why it was not working. What's the worst thing you've ever heard from HR? Well, he could bring a gun to work and shoot someone, and we couldn't necessarily just fire him. That was what she said to us. My best friend and I were sitting across the table from HR, and she went ahead and informed us that the supervisor that I'd had for less than a month was someone we couldn't get rid of. He'd been a micromanager, which was creating a toxic work environment and making it difficult to be at work, but that wasn't necessarily against policy. No, what I couldn't put up with was how handsy he was getting with our 18 to 20-year-old female student workers. I'd gone ahead and told my boss, and my boss didn't seem to be that bothered by it. There were definitely rumors around the office that she'd been trying to get rid of me and that maybe she was trying to get me to quit by hiring a hostile supervisor. This was not going to go over well because I really needed that job. I got my tuition paid by being a worker at ASU, and I was going to graduate owing only $500. So I was ready to put up with just about anything. When she told me this, my best friend looked so dejected. She felt like no one was going to protect us at work. I, on the other hand, felt so empowered. Are you kidding me? If we can't get rid of this guy who is actively hurting our female student workers, they can't get rid of me for insubordination. I walked into work that next day strutting. Physically, I just opened the door, but in my head, bam, I was ready to take no prisoners. I was not putting up with anything anymore. I had been there for over 3 years, and I had been crying most days when I came home from work. I was so stressed out about losing my job and having to pay for massive student loans. And all that fear was gone now. I sat down at the desk and I informed my supervisor that I was going to ignore all of his new policies, all of his new procedures, and I was going to continue to do my job the way I had done it before he had arrived there. Because I loved my job. I really enjoyed helping students, but I was not going to put up with someone who was just there to keep me under his thumb. He did not like hearing that. He was so pissed. He looked at me and said, "Sarah, you have to respect me. I'm your supervisor." I shrugged and said, "Well, respect is earned, not given, and you have not earned it." He was so taken aback. "Well, if you respect me, I'll respect you." But I knew what that meant. When people say, "I'll respect you if you respect me," they mean if you respect me as an authority, I'll respect you as a person. This was not going to fly with me. I said, "It looks like you have a hard time with my personality. Maybe we have a conflict here. You should take that to HR." He did not take that well either, and I heard him stomp off down the hallway to go talk to my boss. A couple minutes later, I just hear her yelling for me, and I continued to strut across the office. Went into her room, she told me to close the door, and I sat down. Immediately, I start hearing all this malarkey about, you need to respect him, he's an authority in this office, he knows procedures better than you do. Honestly, it went in one ear and out the other. I wasn't listening at all. She'd lost all her power. I knew she couldn't fire me. And as I sat there thinking about how powerless she was, I felt my stomach rumble. And I decided to do the most disrespectful thing you can do to a person in a small enclosed space. I farted. I thought it was going to be maybe a silent but deadly one, or maybe it was just going to be a little wheep, but no smell. No, it was neither of those. It was absolutely putrid. It smelled like I had pooped directly on her desk. And it was so loud. It was long and gurgling. There was no ignoring this. But in that moment, I don't know why, I decided to poker face. I wasn't going to acknowledge it at all. My boss did, though. She stopped speaking immediately. And she looked at me as if to say, and I just gestured as if to say, go on. She couldn't. She leaned forward and went, as if to say, there are only two of us in this room. You know what you did, and I know what you did, and we're not moving on until that's acknowledged. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. What was she gonna do to me? She stood up immediately. Get out of my office. I stood up, closed the door behind me. I hope you enjoyed this speech, my tale of maybe the most literal gaslighting I've ever heard of. But what's most important for you to understand here is that if you are in an intolerable situation, you really should research what the consequences of disobedience are. Because sometimes there isn't one. And sometimes you have way more power than you ever thought you did.